Hello, I'm Lucy from In the Midst of Madness, and today I wanted to talk to you about a couple of things. The first one, before I forget, is the Mental Health Blog Awards. Now, I was awarded Vlogger of the Year last year, which I was absolutely thrilled about, and I did a video about that a while back. And I am in the nominations again this year in 3 categories. So I'm in the Micro-Influencer of the Year, Blogger and Vlogger of the Year. I will put the links in the description box below, which tells you who the nominees are for each category, and then also there's the link to the vote. The vote is super easy, there is absolutely no spam involved, please don't worry, that was my first worry and thought. But yeah, you literally just click the link. I think it's linked to your Google account or something, because it doesn't ask you for any details, but you can only vote once. You don't have to vote in each category. You can just click next and this will take you through to the next one. I am under Lucy and either In the Midst of Madness or Colouring in the Midst of Madness, depending on whether it's my blog and social media channels or my YouTube channel, because that's Colouring in the Midst of Madness. And I'd love it if you vote for me or anybody else. If you like my content, then it would be really lovely if you voted for me. I'd be very honoured. But yeah, the voting closes on the 6th of June, so there's only a few more days left. I've been very lax at sharing this anywhere or telling anybody. But yeah, the votes are open, so please do consider voting for me, and all of the information you need is in the description box. So that's got that bit out of the way so that I don't forget. And I can't remember when I last did a video, but I think it was like 5 or 6 weeks ago. Feels like really recently and ages ago all at once. But I said that I would continue to kind of give updates on like how I'm doing. I have been trying to vlog more regularly, which I keep wanting to do, but I keep not doing it for all sorts of reasons, as I have often said in the past. But I'm here now, and I thought I'd give an update. And yeah, I don't really know where to start. But I'm certainly not improved, which is a shame. I think when I started therapy in February, I don't really know sort of what timescale I thought, but I did think that by the end of May I would have noticed quite a sort of noticeable improvement, which was probably just wishful thinking. It feels very naive now, but yeah, it's been really difficult because this time last year I was doing quite well, and like it was Joe's birthday last week, and last year we were able to go like 45 minutes away to his aunt and uncle's, excuse me, for lunch, which was really lovely, and we spent the whole day there, and I felt pretty calm. I had a really nice time, and that was lovely. And then this year all I could manage was for them to come to us for coffee, and then they took Joe out for a meal, because I couldn't do that, and I couldn't really deal with sort of eating in front of people in our flat. I certainly couldn't go anywhere, and I think having that stark contrast of what we did on that day last year versus this year was really quite challenging, because I try really hard not to compare. I do it all the time, but I try not to, and yeah, that was quite hard, and I keep trying to sort of say to myself, well, I'm trying my best and I'm in therapy and I'm doing what I need to do, but I did think sort of by Joe's birthday I would be doing better, and I'm really not, and I'm doing really quite badly, to be honest. Like I worked out earlier that I've been outside for 2 hours on one day in the last 3 weeks, and that was to the park that I can see out of my lounge window. To go and sit on a bench where I can see my lounge window from. Sorry, I've got allergies today and my throat's gone really dry. But yeah, it's just not been great. and it's just really tiring. I think people really, I know I think I've said on basically every video probably I've ever made, but every video that I can remember recently, how tired I am, and it's just never ending. Like the tiredness, I keep thinking it's because my sleep's bad, and then my sleep improves. Like at the moment my sleep's a lot better than it was. I'm not sleeping enough, so I think on my last video I was saying I was sleeping about 9.5 hours a day and losing basically the whole morning to that. I have managed to rein that in a bit, and I'm just about managing to stay awake during the day, which is good. But I'm not going to sleep early enough, so then when I get up at 10, I've had like 7.5 hours sleep. Last night I managed to wake up for an hour at 7 AM for no reason. So I think I've had like about 6.5 hours sleep. So I'm extra tired today. But yeah, I think people really probably underestimate the exhaustiveness of being mentally ill, because I think even doctors often, like my psychiatrist doesn't really sort of seem to understand at all. None of my psychiatrists have ever understood. And it's sort of, well, what do you do with your day? And it's like, to be honest, I don't really know. I don't do an awful lot at the moment, because I can't really focus on any routines. I end up really berating myself if I have a routine and I don't stick to it. So I try and not have too much of a routine whilst also trying to actually get things done. And the day just goes. And like when Joe comes home from work, I sort of think about like, well, what have I done today? And I don't know, like I used to watch TV basically from when I woke up to when I went to bed, and I'm not doing that. I do watch some, but I don't watch hours and hours and hours at the moment. I don't really do any hobbies. I do spend quite a lot of time aimlessly scrolling on social media, which I periodically try and cut back because it does tend to make me worse. But then I don't seem to do anything. I don't really cook, and I really struggle to eat properly, so I have to focus on going and getting a banana, not going and eating biscuits, making my lunch at a sensible time, not eating biscuits, etc. And yeah, I don't really know what I do. I just seem to spend an awful lot of time thinking and existing, and a lot of the time at the moment wishing I didn't exist, and then trying to work out ways in which I can make my life better, and not really knowing how to do that. And then I go down very dark thought routes, and I try and steer myself away from those. But yeah, I think people really underestimate, I think I underestimate just how tiring it is living in and with a brain that has to fight to exist, that has to fight to live each day. And like I had some news a couple of weeks ago that actually doesn't change very much, but at the time it turned my world upside down, which sounds really dramatic, and I can't explain anything about it here, sorry. It's nothing like as exciting or intriguing as it sounds. But it turned my world upside down, and I very much went down the dark thought route, which again was extremely tiring. And I'm starting to pull out of that, and I'm really proud of myself that I pulled out of that quicker than last time. But it's just a lot of effort. Like, it's a lot of effort waking up when you kind of wish you wouldn't, and getting up when there's not an awful lot of point, when you haven't really got any kind of purpose. Like, most days I don't have any commitments. It's just quite difficult to motivate yourself to do any of that. And I know I have to do it because it makes me worse if I don't, but it's quite difficult to sort of persuade yourself to do those things when you could do it tomorrow, or you could do it the day after. And that's what happens with the vlogging. I put it on my to-do list. It's been on my to-do list, I think, from the week after I did the last video. And it's gone on every day since then, apart from the days when I couldn't do it, where I take it off and then I put it back on. And yeah, I really, really can't overestimate, or overemphasise, sorry, how tiring this is, because it really, really is. And I I know that I don't tend to sort of talk with much emotion, and I have regularly in the past been told off by therapists for describing things like I'm reading a shopping list, because I don't attach feelings to things every time I talk about them, because it's, again, exhausting. But all I would say is listen to what I'm saying, not how I'm saying it, because what I'm saying is true. So if I'm saying I'm exhausted, I am exhausted. The fact I'm not sat here yawning or crying or, I don't know, what you'd display exhausted as, but like when I say that something's sad, just because I'm not crying doesn't mean that I'm not completely cut up about it. It just means I don't let my face know. So I will just laugh and joke about completely and utterly inappropriate things, and I think people have often thought that I'm really cold or heartless, or that I'm joking, and a lot of the time I joke around about things, but I'm not making up the things I say. Like if I say I'm really struggling with something, I am really struggling with it, but I don't tend to sort of react outwardly, albeit therapy is starting to change that, which I know it needs to change, but I'm not loving that process. So I've kind of gone off on a tangent. So therapy is good, but it's certainly not making any improvements at the moment to my life, which I'm finding really difficult, because when I started the therapy, and I did say in the last video, I'm not telling anybody what it is, etc. at the moment, because that is way too much pressure. But the research I've done about this therapy ahead of time sort of showed that it works quite quickly, and so I really did think sort of by May, where I would have been going for sort of 3 or 4 months, that I would be noticing some noticeable changes. I would be really starting to get on my way to feeling better, and maybe not going straight back into full-time employment, but maybe like be able to go to co-op and stuff like that, which I can't do and haven't been able to do for months, well, years, and that is not the case. In fact, actually my progress just kind of tanked pretty much as soon as I started going, and I've now actually got to the point where the going is so difficult that I am now having to do it on Zoom, because I can't cope with psyching myself up for days in advance every single week, and then about 1 session in every 3 being unable to do any actual therapeutic work because I am in such a state and crying and sobbing, which is so unlike me. But yes, like sobbing to the point where I'm then not able to actually do the therapy. It was just getting way too difficult, and it wasn't sobbing in a therapeutic way. It was sobbing in an I'm out of control and totally overwhelmed way. And so we agreed that we'd do it on Zoom, and that's good. It's not as good as going in person, but for me it's sort of the only option I really have to be able to actually keep going. But it's really difficult because I just kind of feel like I've failed, and I know I haven't, and I'm still doing it, and I'm working really hard, but it's just not turned out how I thought it was going to. It's not been the experience I thought it was going to be. Like I thought I was going to go and it was going to be really hard, but that it would be like life-changing quite quickly, and that's not been the case at all, and my functioning is the worst it's been in a really, really long time, and I just keep getting wave after wave of just absolutely crippling anxiety, where I can't necessarily even get out of bed, and I have nightmares and stuff like that, and just think all these horrible things, and it's just paralysing at the moment. Like today's not too bad, but at least once a week, often for days at a time, I just get this, just crippling anxiety, that it's just this feeling of existential dread in your chest and in your stomach, and you just feel sick and nervous, but way beyond nervous, all day, and half the time it's not even a reason. So I just spend the whole day just feeling like this awful thing is about to happen and not even knowing what the awful thing is. So there's nothing I can do about it, because there's nothing to sort of calm down about, because it's not about anything. But yeah, that's been very difficult, and I now realise sort of in doing the therapy why my experience is so different from the experiences I'd read about, and that's that some people have like really big bad things happen to them, but there are a few of them, and those are very difficult to work through, but once you've worked through one, you feel so much lighter. And like my therapist described it as like different people's trauma is sort of like having a rucksack of issues, and some people have like boulders in the bag, and she described it as me having gravel. I would honestly liken it to having sand, and it's like we're dealing with a grain of sand at a time, and so each grain of sand is like, oh good, that's out of the bag, and then you look at the weight of the bag and you feel the weight of the bag and you can't even tell a difference, and it feels like I could go through weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and months of this and not necessarily feel any difference in the weight that is holding me down, where other people will spend a few weeks working on a boulder and then that is gone and you go, oh my gosh, I feel so much better, which was what I expected. I didn't realise I had all of these issues, which again makes me feel extremely naive and verging on idiotic, because I've lived through all these things and I know they were fairly rubbish, and I didn't realise quite the effect they'd had on me, or quite the number of them, because you can't remember everything at once, or at least I can't and haven't. And so a lot of the pain of the process over the last few months has been just having all these memories come back to me of things that I'd just stopped thinking about. I don't think I'd repressed them, I don't think I'd buried them even. I think I'd just stopped paying attention to them because they weren't relevant anymore, and I had a new thing to worry about. And so yeah, it's just been, well, I've been describing them to everybody else as cans of worms, and it's like, here's another can of worms, Lucy, and open it up and you go, oh my god, there's loads of worms, and oh, I didn't remember that one, or any of those, or this category of worm, and I just feel like there's just this sea of cans of worms, and I don't know if I finished opening them. I've certainly not started dealing with them. Maybe like a worm, which again, it's like I've got thousands of worms and hurrah, I've dealt with one. So I think recently I've been really struggling with hope, and I think I mentioned that in my last video, because I've always managed to maintain hope, which I find really odd given that I'm not spiritual or religious or anything like that, but I have always kept hope. I have always believed that there is better for me one day, that this won't be the whole of my life, this won't be it, and I don't know when or how, and at the moment even if I will get better, but I have always believed that I would, and recently that's quite difficult to believe, and I think part of the hope I had before, and why I'm being so cagey about talking about therapy, is my one beacon was this therapy, because I had been told about it years and years ago, and I had always thought that might be the thing that works. It's kind of out there enough, it's different enough from anything else I've tried, maybe that will be the thing that does it, maybe that will be the thing that changes my life, because I've read lots of accounts of this changing people's lives, and I don't think I ever sort of let myself believe it would, but I believed it might, and at the moment it doesn't feel like it's getting any closer, and as each week passes I'm struggling with that, because like money is tight for me. Like I'm on benefits, and I'm only entitled to disability benefits because of Joe, and him working, so I am entirely reliant on him and the government for income, which I hate, and I've hated that throughout, and it's why it took me 6.5 years to even apply for benefits, because I didn't need that, I didn't want that. I needed the money, but I didn't need the process that it entailed to get the money. And I mean, the money is literally for the extra costs of being disabled, so things like therapy. So it's completely justifiable that I'm paying for private therapy, because I couldn't get it on the NHS, and in some ways that's heartbreaking, but in other ways it's been quite good, because it means I don't have limited sessions. I'm only limited by how long I want to go and how long I can afford it. But my benefits cover that, so all the time I'm still ill, I can still afford the therapy, albeit I wouldn't go forever, because what's the point? If it's not making me better, I won't go till I die. But yeah, it's not cheap, and I just keep, like, I have deliberately lost count, thank goodness, of how many sessions I've had. But I remember thinking before I started, if I get to 10 sessions and there's not a noticeable difference, I'll stop going, unless there's a very good reason why I've not improved. And I'm definitely beyond 10 sessions, and I haven't noticeably improved, albeit there is a fairly good reason why I've not improved, which is we're dealing with grains of sand. And from the sounds of it, at some point we might be able to, like, scoop out a whole load of sand. That seems to be sort of how the therapy works. It may just sort of suddenly shift, which would be amazing. I'm kind of hoping that the strap of the bag might just break and everything will just fall off me. That would be really nice. I do love a metaphor. So yeah, I keep hoping that might happen. It hasn't happened yet, but I'm trying to hold on to that hope, albeit I think that's probably the most naive thing I might be hoping for at all. But yeah, I am very much struggling with the fact that mostly the hope is not there in terms of believing in the hope. So obviously the hope, for me, the hope is always there, because I don't think I'd give up until I was sort of on my deathbed. And even then I'm not sure I would. I'm quite stubborn. But I think the belief in the hope is where I'm struggling now. Like, where before I knew I would get better, I just didn't know how or when. Now I don't really know I'll get better, and that's horrid. And much as I don't tend to feel things when I say them, actually that hurts. That hurts in here. That's not nice to think about. And I think that's where it's been very difficult, because I'm not a very emotional person, which I've realised is not healthy and not normal and not just me. I thought that was just how I was born. It turns out it's not. I'm having to feel all these things that I've just never really dealt with, which is quite a shock. I didn't realise other people were sort of going through these things, albeit I don't think they generally go through these things as intensely, because they're not built up over 31 years. So it feels a bit more volcanic than for other people, I think. But yeah, it's a lot, and I'm not used to feeling emotional or dealing with that on top of dealing with difficult things. So that's a different experience. Sorry, I'm being so blasé. This is just how I deal with things. But time has just disappeared with this. I feel like it's sort of turned into a rambling mess, which is a great metaphor for how things are in my brain, because it's very much this. But yeah, I am going to continue with the therapy. I don't really have any other options, so I've got to try and make it work. I am desperately trying to learn to be patient, which it turns out is not a forte of mine at all. I genuinely believed I was a patient person. I am not when it comes to me. I'm patient with others. I am very much not in my own life, about my own sort of recovery, etc. But I will be continuing with therapy, because that's what I do. But it's just been very hard with feeling like I'm losing hope, not having any improvements, being worse than I've been in a very long time, and having very little support because of that. So like, I was going and seeing my dad regularly, and I can't do that, and I desperately miss that. Again, I can't even talk about that. That hurts. And not being able to see my nana, I haven't seen her in 7 months. I hate that. But I will continue in the hopes that I get those things back soon, because that will really spur me on and keep me going. And I'm hoping I can find a bit of a purpose soon, because I feel very lost and bored, and I'm not used to feeling bored, but I can't really concentrate or remember things. So yeah, I need to, I keep trying to get back on track with that. I will continue to try. But yeah, sorry, this has been a bit of a rambling mess and probably deeply depressing, which I'm very sorry for. You don't need to worry about me. I'm safe. I have support. I often feel bad things and think very dark thoughts, but I won't be doing anything. And I have support around me, and a therapist. So yeah, I will get through this. I just don't know how, when, etc. And I'm tired, but I will continue. I will persevere. So yeah, but please do comment. Do check out the description box for the Mental Health Blog Awards links if you like content like this. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for being there. It really does mean a lot, even though I'm terrible at responding to comments. Thank you. And I will hopefully be back again soon, but you never know when. It's always a surprise. But thank you very much. Bye.